Hey, and welcome back to Wild Mythology. I welcome you to the channel with bread and salt. For this video, I'm going to be covering 5 gods and goddesses of the underworld and death from mythology and folklore. Every lord, king, and queen of hell, every deity involved with the afterlife, and every torturer and soul guider. They'll all be a part of this series of videos. But before we get to that, the end of our giveaway is coming soon at the end of the month, so don't forget to subscribe and make a comment on this video so you can have a chance to win the book Bullfinch's Mythology. Plus, every video that you comment on that I made this April gives you an extra chance to win. Counting this video, that would give you 6 ballots. Now, enough of that, let's get to the gods of the underworld. Number 1. Hades. One of the most well-known underworld gods has to be Hades, who is the god of the dead, riches, and the king of the underworld in Greek mythology. He's one of the 6 children of Kronos and Rhea, the king and queen of the Titans. When he was born, Hades was instantly swallowed by his father. Luckily for him, as well as his other 4 siblings who were swallowed, Zeus was able to trick his father Kronos into puking his brothers and sisters. Over the next couple of years, Hades helped his siblings in the war against his father and the Titans, eventually resulting in the defeat of Kronos. After the war, Hades, Zeus, and their brother Poseidon drew lots to decide which domain and kingdom each would rule. Zeus drew the sky, Poseidon drew the sea, and Hades drew the underworld, the kingdom of the dead. As a king, Hades was cold and indifferent, but usually fair when it came to dealing with his subjects and the dead. He gave little attention to the happenings of the living, and was highly focused on making sure no souls escaped his kingdom, as well as making sure proper punishments came to those who deserved it. Perhaps the most famous myth involving Hades is the abduction of Persephone, the goddess of spring. In the myth, Hades fell in love with the goddess and kidnapped her to the underworld. This caused Persephone's mother Demeter to halt the seasons and stop the crops from growing. Realizing the danger, Zeus sent Hermes to retrieve Persephone. But Persephone had eaten 6 pomegranates, and those who ate food from the underworld were not allowed to leave. But Zeus had a plan, and he told Persephone that she would have to spend 6 months in the underworld with Hades, and the other 6 with her mother Demeter. Eventually, Persephone came to love Hades, and even had a daughter with him, Melinoe, the goddess of ghosts. Number 2. Freyja. Freyja is the Vanir goddess of love, beauty, magic, fertility, and war from Norse mythology. She's one of the most prominent goddesses in Norse mythology, and is involved in many stories, as well as possibly being the reason for the war between the Vanir and the Aesir. She is the owner of the beautiful necklace Brisingamen, a chariot pulled by 2 cats, and a large cloak covered in falcon feathers that grants its user the ability of flight. Now I know what you're thinking. What does a goddess of love have anything to do with the underworld or death? A fair question, and while we'll definitely talk more about Freyja's stories and history in another video, today we'll focus on the afterlife she rules. Freyja rules over the fields of Folkvanga, which is inhabited by those who die in battle. Sitting in the middle of the fields is Freyja's hall, Sessrumnir, which is large, stunning, and able to seat every warrior brought to Folkvanga. But what about Odin in the halls of Valhalla, you may ask? Well, when warriors die in glorious combat, Freyja gets first pick of which of the dead are delivered by the Valkyries to Folkvanga, while the other half of the dead are delivered to Odin in the halls of Valhalla. Warriors in Folkvanga will keep their fighting skills sharp by having battles every day while being watched by Freyja, until finally they are called upon as the army of the gods during Ragnarok. Number 3. Satan. Satan is the devil, a deity said to be the source of all evil and the king of hell according to the Bible and Christian mythology. But before the devil was Satan, he was known as Lucifer, or even Samael, the Lightbringer, the Accuser, God's greatest angel. It's said that when God created humanity, Lucifer grew jealous of God's great power and favoritism towards humans. In the Quran, Lucifer is known as Iblis, and when God created Adam, he commanded all his angels to bow before the first man. Iblis refused and spat at Adam's feet, claiming that he was greater than the first man. In both versions, Lucifer, or Iblis, recruits an army of like-minded angels and with them rebels against God. But Lucifer and his army were defeated and casted out of heaven into the fiery pits of hell as fallen angels. And so Lucifer abandoned his name, becoming Satan, the Lord of Hell and bringer of evil. For revenge of his defeat, Satan transformed himself into a snake and tricked Eve into eating the forbidden fruit from the tree of knowledge. This eventually led to Adam's and Eve's banishment from the Garden of Eden, making Satan feel complete pleasure for causing the first sin in human history. And so Satan became the cause for human temptation and sin. As for hell, it is supposedly a land of endless fire, where all those who have sinned and haven't been forgiven by God are punished for eternity by Satan and his demons/fallen angels. Number 4. Ereshkigal. Ereshkigal is the goddess and queen of Kher, also called Irkalla, the underworld of Mesopotamian mythology. She is the child of Nana, the god of the moon, and is the older sister of Utu, the god of the sun, and Inanna, the goddess of love and the queen of heaven. When Ereshkigal was young, a great demon dragon came up from Kher and kidnapped her, taking her into the underworld. And while many of the gods tried to save her, it was too late. Once someone entered Kher, they were not allowed to leave, not even gods. The dragon was eventually slayed, and after some time, Ereshkigal became queen of Kher. In Mesopotamian culture, there was no good or bad afterlife. All dead souls went to Kher, a land where the dead only ate mud, unless their living family members performed a ritual. The families of the deceased would leave food and water by their graves, allowing the dead to eat and drink in the underworld. It was also the job of the family to give the dead proper burial rites. If they didn't, Ereshkigal would send the dead back to their families as ghosts to torment them. As queen of the underworld, Ereshkigal was in charge of all the dead, as well as the demons and other gods of the underworld. In fact, her first husband was Gugalana, the demon bull of heaven that was slayed by the hero Gilgamesh and the wild man Enkidu. Number 5. King Yama. King Yama, or King Yan, is the god of death and king of Naraka, the Hindu underworld, and the Diyu, the Chinese underworld. King Yama is usually described as large, with 4 arms and a dog-like face with fangs. In Hinduism, King Yama is the son of the sun god and the goddess of dusk. He was apparently born as a mortal to his godly parents, and was the first mortal to ever die. This caused him to become the god king of the dead, for who better to judge spirits than the first mortal to die? While King Yama gets his origins from Hindu mythology, he has become an important death deity in both Buddhist and Taoism myths. In all versions, King Yama is the judge of the underworld. All dead spirits are brought to him by the 2 guards of the Diyu, the horse-faced and ox-headed guardians. Once a spirit is brought to him, King Yama judges their life. Good spirits will be granted instant reincarnation and will be blessed in their new life. But bad spirits will be punished and sent to one or more of the 18 hells, each that has its own unique punishment. Each hell is looked after by one of the 10 kings that King Yama appointed. They're in charge of making sure each inhabitant is being properly punished, as well as keeping track of a spirit's time in hell. The 10 kings answer to King Yama, whose most important job is to keep all spirits within the Diyu, until it is time for them to be reincarnated. And there it is, I give you 5 gods and goddesses of death and the underworld from Mythology and Folklore. I hope you enjoyed the video, and don't forget to subscribe and comment so you can enter our giveaway. Well, until next time on Wild Mythology.